Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. I'm Serge. Joining me, as always, I have Jer, Alex, and Liam. A reminder that this podcast is brought to you by you with your support over at the Patreon at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. Let's get started with our opening segment. As always, the best card that you're not playing, and up today, we got Jer. Jer, what you got?
I have some holistic wisdom for y'all.
Okay.
It's holistic wisdom.
What?
The holistic wisdom is holistic wisdom.
So this card is a 1 green enchantment, has an activated ability, 2 and remove a card in your hand from the game, otherwise known as exile a card. And then you may return target card from your graveyard to your hand if it shares a type with that card.
Huh.
This card's spice.
So the most obvious place to play this card is in Enchantress, where a lot of your enchantments, you can get back key enchantments like Moat or Rest in Peace that just host some people if they need to destroy them. So it gives you some recursive ability. But it also lets you reuse some of the sacrifice enchantments for Enchantress triggers. Lets you go off that way. I have also liked it just in other decks that let you grind. Sometimes you have you draw a hand attack spell late in the game when it's not useful. You can exile the hand attack spell to get back a Wrath to Wrath the
It's like it
the
turns
aggro
a
deck.
card into your hand into a sort of regrowth.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And
You can activate at any time.
Yeah, and it's a recursive ability.
It's really good in inconsistent decks that don't have depth of certain cards. So if you have silver bullets or cards that are really key to what you do, it lets you get them back. I even heard of Ben playing Enchantress and managed to Wasteland lock his opponent because he had a Wasteland in his graveyard, and every turn he'd draw any other land, turn that land into Wasteland, and managed to basically land lock them without a Crucible.
With the Dredge land.
Dakmor
Dakmor
Salvage.
Salvage.
You have to exile it, so it only happens once.
Yeah.
It's not quite
Almost.
that
If
busted.
it was discard, it would be super busted. But it is exile, but I've still been
I want to time walk with this
really happy with
Yeah.
this.
No, it's cool. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. It's a little bit slow, but it's good on the grind.
Look down, look up. Your preordain is now Time Walk.
Surprise! Yeah.
Yeah, and if you keep chaining sorceries, then you potentially just have Time Walk forever.
Woof.
All right, let's get into today's theme. Today is part 2 of our Dominaria set review. Last episode, we did the Spice, or sort of our first draft, the cards that we were really excited about, the cards that we wanted to talk about, and then some things happened. One, we got to play in our pre-release, so we got to play with a lot of these cards and re-examine them. And 2, you gave us a lot of feedback. Just a lot on Twitter, on the YouTube comments. So thank you so much for letting us know. And we've gone through and we've grabbed a bunch of the cards that we think would be really interesting to talk about. We are going through in the traditional Wooburg, followed by Gold Order, and then alphabetical. And without much ado, I think we should jump right into it.
Get it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, let us start with Baird, Steward of Argive. It is a 4-mana 2/4 legendary human soldier for 2 white, has vigilance, and creatures can't attack you or planeswalker you control unless their controller pays a generic for each creature. Jared, start us off.
Yeah, so I actually think this creature is fairly reasonable. It's got a pretty decent body, 4 toughness is really key to this creature. The tax effect is really nice in aggressive matchups. It has vigilance, which is also really nice in those matchups. Its closest analog is Windborn Muse, which is almost the same mana cost, 3 and a white for a 3/3 flyer.
I think it's a 2/3.
Is it a 3/3?
It's a 2/3.
All right, it's a 2/3. Yeah, that sounds more realistic. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
And so Windborn Muse, interesting enough, the ability is not strictly better. It makes you pay 2 for each creature that attacks you, but it doesn't tax attacking planeswalkers.
Not many of those tax effects do, which is interesting.
Which Baird does. So that is another upside. So I could see playing Baird.
Yeah, in a prison control tax sort of strategy.
Or even a more creature-based taxing strategy.
Cool. Next up, we have Teshar, the Ancestors' Apostle. Man, this is going to be a tough one for the pronunciations.
What now?
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's a bird cleric. 4-mana 2/2 with flying for 3 and a white. Whenever you cast a historic spell, return target creature with CMC 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Alex, you wanna take a little gander about this card? What's your evaluation?
Well, this gets into the cleric deck.
And the bird deck.
You know how many clerics are legendary? Not
Two?
very many.
Yeah.
Yeah, very few. This one and something else probably.
I'm trying to think. So for the context of Highlander,
Yeah.
Historic is most often going to read Artifact and maybe Planeswalker.
Yeah.
Like legendary creatures too is going to come up.
Some-
Non-zero amount. Like there's a bunch.
Sometimes,
of those in the
but yeah.
It's like 2/2 flyers. That's got evasion, and then like maybe sometimes you jam your Isamaru and get back your Talia. That's kind of cool.
And it's notable that you don't have to return a historic creature, a legendary creature, with this. It
any
returns
creature.
any creature 3 or less.
Okay.
So that
Yeah.
that is pretty nice.
It's weird because like I feel like the nuttest play with this creature is going to be get it and then play a Mox, but that's not when you want to have Mox.
It's
Although
not, but
maybe-
if you save one, it's not the worst.
Yeah, I mean like maybe it makes ripping a Mox late game not as bad.
I think this card is right on the fence. I think this is a card that you could definitely try out and see how it goes in the right deck, especially if you're very... it was suggested to me that I try it in something like Workshop Weenie that has all of these very cheap artifacts as a way to kind of recur stuff late game, because there's a potential to rebuild after Wrath. Play this and like 2 0-drop artifact creatures. I now have 5 creatures on the board
I
or something
suppose,
like that.
yeah, the awkward part is that this is competing with the likes of, what's the angel?
Restoration
Angel and like, oh, I don't know, Elspeth.
Linvala.
It's tough. The 4 mana cost is tough, but I think it's worth experimenting with to see if you can get enough value off that.
Hear me out. What if it's a combo card? This plus Goblin Bombardment plus Memnite and Ornithopter is lethal.
No, because you're not casting them.
Yeah, you are.
It returns it to the battlefield.
Yeah, not
And
your
then you
hand.
sack it. Awkward.
Yeah.
All right. Never mind. So close.
But if you add in Enduring Renewal, then you're away to the races.
Well, but you just don't need.
You don't
this
need.
if
Yeah, you don't
if
need to
have
char at that
Enduring
point.
Renewal. I was kind of hoping this might be second
away to the
copy.
races.
I think you're also. Yeah.
All right, I'm excited to hear suggestions. I think this card is very interesting. It's got a cool effect.
There's got to be a way to infinite people
Yeah,
with this card.
maybe. All right, let's move on. Next up,
There are 28 legendary clerics.
well, we weren't even close.
Only
Liam.
2, eh?
I mean, look.
I guess 2 as well.
That means the deck has more support than even I thought.
Yeah, just like 8.5 tails.
Oh, right.
Look, this deck is
Talia
great.
of the Vast. Geist of St. Traff.
Wait, is Talia a cleric?
Kalia.
Kalia of the Vast.
Oh,
Mardu
Dragons,
in 1.
demons.
Yeah.
The original Mother of Dragons.
Sure.
Like you're gonna have to
The
build this
flip
deck.
the flip Liliana.
Ooh.
Mavrin Fane, if you care about
Who?
vampires.
This deck's just good.
Okay.
Ragnar.
Oh, classic Ragnar. How could
Yeah.
we forget?
The real problem with the Cleric Tribal deck is the cards that care about clerics. There's not very many of those.
Yeah.
It's a
What
secret thing I
cleric
have.
lords do you have?
There's no lords, but there is a cleric card that like lets you gain life equal to the number of clerics you control or something like that.
And there's Rotlung Reanimator.
There's Rotlung Reanimator. That one's actually
right, but
fine.
Let's bring it back.
All
Let's
right.
bring it back.
Angus Mackenzie.
Of course.
Okay.
Dominaria. Next up, we have Naban, the Dean of Iteration. This is a 2-mana, 2/1 wizard for 1 and a blue, legendary human wizard. And it has the following text. If a wizard entering the battlefield under your control causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Liam, tell me about Naban.
Yeah, the flavor of this card is really good. Like the flavor text, perfect. Now do it again.
Yeah.
Fits perfectly with both the effect and the name. Unfortunately, that's where the positive things stop for what I can say about this card. It's cute, and you can look. I among many people can imagine sweet things you could do with this card. I'm sure. The big problem is that it's a 2/1 for 2 that doesn't do anything when it enters the battlefield, and requires you to then have cards which are not that trivial. Like I think we sort of overestimated how many wizards there really are, and you need to be really consistently getting value out of this for it to be worthwhile, and I don't think you will. Sure, the dreams of like curving this into double Vendilion and click your opponent sounds like maybe okay, but it's just not enough to justify the card.
Yeah, I was
and
gonna
the
say
power and
that
toughness.
the floor of this card is it's a blue piker, full stop. It's a blue piker that gets bounced by Caracas, so it's actually worse than piker,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
That's okay. All right, let's move on. Speaking of wizards, I actually want to combine 2 cards here. I'd like to talk about Wizard's Retort and Wizard's Lightning. These cards are basically 3-mana instant versions of Counterspell and Lightning Bolt. Basically, if you control a wizard, they cost that mana effect. Liam, do you want to talk about these cards?
I'm the other Liam.
Jared, do you want to talk about these cards?
You don't even
so-
look that similar today. I have a hat on, he doesn't.
Well, your hat is red, and my not hat is red.
Okay, Liam, through to you.
Perfect. So these cards probably just aren't worth playing in Highlander. There's enough more consistent, cheaper versions to play. Like, you can play Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, all the 2-mana ones, and I just can't see playing enough Wizards to justify playing these and getting the cost reduction consistently enough to make them worthwhile.
It's like you could play this, or you could play Searing Spear, which is 1 mana cheaper, always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is tough. All right, moving on. We have Zahid, the Djinn of the Lamp. 6 mana, 5/6 legendary Djinn. You may pay 3 and a blue, so 4 mana total, and tap an untapped artifact you control rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Also has flying. Alex.
So I think I overheard you guys talking about this in maybe some sort of Academy style deck where you could turbo this out way faster than is ordinarily allowed. So like, is your dream play like artifact land, Mox, Grim Monolith, untap this guy?
You knew it's just Soul Ring.
And I think the spicy bit on that is there's no casting restriction on the second part. Is that my understanding, or no?
What do you mean there's no casting restriction?
I thought Liam was saying he blew somebody out at instant speed with this card.
Oh, no. That person had the blue-white
Raph
legend.
Capuchin.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
had
makes a
Raph
lot more
Capuchin
sense.
play,
I was
and
just like,
that
I don't
let them
understand.
play it in
That, like, that didn't make
Okay.
sense.
Yeah,
We
but-
talk about that.
I added this one to the list, and I think it's borderline because there's some sort of mid-rangey artifact decks going around that like try to play like some acceleration early and then just start slamming huge things ahead of curve.
Haymakers, yeah.
And I think this could maybe see play in that deck, just like slamming a huge flyer, because partly that deck's one of that deck's biggest weaknesses is flyers, just like flying over your Scarab God and your mere battle sphere. Well,
The Mirror Battlesphere is...
Actually, you know what might be kind of great for this? Turn 3 sword.
Yeah, that's what I was
Turn
going to
4,
say.
tap your sword and cast
yeah,
it.
because in the mid-range deck you are playing a bunch of artifacts where you don't mind.
Tapping them.
Tapping
Like
them.
you're not tapping your rock or something like
I
that.
feel like the best ones you want to tap are equipment. Maybe you're okay tapping your
Top.
your top.
Some lock pieces too, like you could tap your Winter Orb if that's the kind of thing you're playing in this deck.
Yeah.
Just make sure you don't tap your Trinisphere. That
Yeah,
one
yeah.
ends badly for
Unlock
you.
them. So I guess our evaluation of this card is it's worth trying. It's interesting in the right deck, in like a mid-range deck that's playing some incidental artifacts. This is probably very playable. Also, it's easier to splash because it's a single blue for a 5/6 flyer instead of double blue.
Also, your floor on this card it's a 5/6 flyer for 6, which is like
It's not good, but it's
not good,
not
but
the
it's
worst.
not bad.
Yeah.
Still gonna kill them in 4 turns.
All right, let's go to the color black and let's talk about the card that we received by no close comparison,
Holy moly.
the most requests to talk about, and that is Josu Vess Lich Knight.
We
Not
got
the black card you thought.
we got 8 requests with Menace.
The zombies.
There's another black card that a lot of people want us to talk about, but this one is different. So this is a 4 mana 4/5 for 2 black for a legendary zombie knight. There's a lot of words here. I think the biggest word on this is menace.
Yeah.
It's a 4/5 for 4 with menace, and it has kicker 6, 5 and a black. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create 8 2/2 black zombies that also have menace. Whose turn is it? I think it's Alex's turn. Alex, you didn't want to play this card.
I thought it was Jared's turn.
But I'm pretty sure it was Liam.
Yeah, it's Liam's turn. So what I think about this card, I was skeptical of this.
It is
at first,
Liam's turn. Shoot.
actually.
That's what I said.
Which is weird because it's a zombie knight, so I should be into it. But
Yeah.
I looked at it and I was like, this is 50 hojillion, squintillion,
Because you thought of it as a 10 draw.
quadrillion mana. I didn't really assess it on the basis of it being a 4-drop, that maybe eventually it's just like I win.
Are you ever casting it for 10?
Yes, in a long grindy game.
Sure.
Or maybe in like, I don't know, maybe you could play this in the Rock.
Your opponent you get settled the wreckaged. That's a real.
My new friends.
Yeah.
That's a real
That's a real
interaction
thing.
that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You swing with like 4 zombies, they settle wreckage you untap with 14 mana or something like that.
Or 10.
Or 10, yeah.
10's enough.
Yeah.
maybe.
10 is the magical number.
But I think where we came down on this is like, do you want to play a 4 mana 4/5 with Menace?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Like it. Well, I'm not saying I do.
Would you put
but-
it in your zombie deck? Sorry, go Liam.
No. That's a good question.
Like, does this get in as the top end of your zombie deck? You've already got lords. You've already got things that'll make it more relevant.
I don't think I play this in zombies, but that doesn't necessarily affect how else it should be assessed, because, like, I've brought the curve on my zombie deck down a lot.
Oh, I thought you brought it more
Oh,
mid-rangey.
no, I brought it way down.
Okay, interesting.
It's still mid-rangey, but it's like really lean mid-range now.
I could potentially see playing this in mono black. You
Yeah.
have like Cabal Coffers, Lake of the Dead.
Oh,
The
interesting.
new one, the 3-mana one.
That one's not great.
You might put it in exactly mono black, right?
If you're
Or do you
only
think,
mono black,
do you
no
think you
utility
wouldn't use it in
lands?
that one?
I don't actually think it gets into mono black.
That's fair. Yeah, what I was going to say is I think when you're evaluating this card, you just have to pretend the kicker cost doesn't exist. So if you're thinking about playing this in your deck, think about, do I want a 2-mana or 4-mana, 4/5 menace? Don't think about the kicker. Pretend you never get to pay the kicker, and if the answer is yes, then you should play this card. And the bonus is maybe it gets kicked once ever. But if you don't want to play a 4/5 menace for 4, then don't play this card.
You know what I think
And-
about what I like about this? It has 5 toughness, which makes their blocks really, really bad. Just like
Well, it's good on offense and good on defense.
Yeah.
Is the thing.
Blocks thrown all
okay.
day.
No, I think I'm probably coming around on this, homie.
Dodges basically all red removal. Like
Flame
Weird.
slash. Ha ha ha! I can't
Yeah.
hear you on my zombie horse.
Then they roast it. You're like, oh,
people aren't really on to roast yet.
no.
It
Don't tell
gets
anybody.
played occasionally, but
Yeah.
not
Not
often.
very common.
All right, let's move on. Next up, we have Torgar, Famine Incarnate. This is a 8-mana 7/6 legendary avatar. All right, here's a bunch of words. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This spell costs 2 less for each creature sacrificed this way. When it enters the battlefield, up to one target player's life total becomes half their starting total rounded down. Liam, start us off.
So the only interaction that I could see with this card that I think maybe is warranted is like in an Aristocrats deck, this is like another way to combo someone out. Because you can like play it, if you have Blood Arson play it, it kind of starts the sacrificing chain for you. And you can stack the triggers, I think at least, that so that you make their life total 10, then you start draining them. But outside of that, I'm not sure how playable this card is. Like, it is potentially a highly discounted 7/6, but the fact that it doesn't have any other keywords besides that means that it runs into problems with getting blocked potentially. It can die really easily. So I don't know. I think this card's potentially going to find a home in a deck. I can't immediately think of a deck that I'm like in a hurry to play it in, but maybe Aristocrats.
It's not even like a great reanimate target.
The triggers don't quite work that way because you're
It's like
part of casting the spell is sacrificing the creatures, so that the Blood Artist triggers will go on top of the spell on the
see,
stack
yeah.
before
That's
it enters the
not good, is
battlefield.
You don't have to target your opponent, though.
That is true.
You could be at
use it.
2 against aggro.
And the other thing you can do is you can sacrifice more than 3 creatures. Like you can sacrifice as many as you want.
Wait,
you
what?
can
Yeah.
turbo reduce its cost. Like
Yeah.
you could sack 10 creatures to this thing. So it can just like sometimes Aristocrats, like it sounds funny, but sometimes all you want is a way to sack your whole board.
Yeah.
Like you're just like you're dead. I just can't do it.
Well, what's kind of nice too is that doesn't use the stack, right? They can't interact with sacrificing with this.
Yeah, like they can't stop you sacrificing the creatures. The triggers and everything will still go on the stack.
Yeah, but what I mean is like if you tried to play like a Viscera Seer, they could counter it.
Ex-
or
exactly,
whatever. This
yeah.
is just like it happens, and then if they have some other piece of interaction, fine. But the triggers are going to get on the stack.
I
whether
could
they like it
actually
or
see
not.
playing this in like a 3-color Aristocrats deck. I don't think you can. Double black is often one of the things that gets cut in the 4-color version, just because you have to be pretty base green in that deck.
But maybe in like Abzan or Mardu.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
I think, I hummed and hawed over this card, and I think I'll continue to hum and haw over it.
All right, next up, we have Vicious Offering. Vicious Offering is a 2-mana instant. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn, or you can kick it by sacking a creature, in which case target creature gets -5/-5. I've lost. I'm just going to start with Jer and go down the line again. Jer.
I'm Jer again.
Can I interest you in a hat?
No, I'm good, man. So yeah, this card is similar to the recently printed Moment of Craving, except instead of the gain 2 life clause, you have the potential to sacrifice a creature to upgrade it into a bigger removal spell. So this is potentially the place I'd think it would see most play is Aristocrats again, except I don't usually play very much removal in that deck. I'm just like pretty all in on the synergy. I've definitely seen other builds where they play some more removal spells, and you definitely
there's a couple
can.
that really
but-
shine in that deck, I think. I mean, Malicious Affliction is insane in Aristocrats.
Yeah,
It's really good anyway, but it's crazy in that deck. Tragic Slip, I've been fairly impressed with, I think.
Does might not do enough?
I don't know. I mean, it's sort of better and worse than Tragic Slip. It's like, its floor is better and its ceiling is worse.
A lot of floor and ceiling.
Well,
Yep.
and the nice part about
build
It
the
also
house.
lets you, it's its own sack outlet, too.
I was gonna say the nice part about this again is it's like Torgar in that they can't stop you sacking a creature, which is sometimes literally all you want to do in that deck.
Well, you
Just
want
like-
to cast this into your Academy Rector.
I'm going to try and move us a little bit quicker now. All right, next up we got Whisper, the Blood Liturgist. This is a 4-mana 2/2 legendary human cleric again. Sacrifice 2 creatures, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Alex.
It's recurable. It's a lot of mana. I think we were comparing this to Hell's Apprentice Necromancer and like Hell's Caretaker and stuff like that, and even stuff like Apprentice only shows up in a tiny handful of decks.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel as though I would probably rather play Recurring Nightmare over this guy.
Fair. No. All right, and finally, I got a big old card for you, Liam.
Yep, that's good. I'm glad it
it's
ended
the
with
new
me.
it's the new Power 9. It's probably the card that has the most hype in the whole set. It's our boy, the Frog Spirit Yargle. 5 mana, 9/3.
That's it, eh?
Yeah.
That's the text we get?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's the Glutton of Verborg. All right. Really quickly, I'm sorry to break everyone's heart. This card's not playable in Highlander most of the time. It dies to Lightning Bolt and that kind of thing. Really awkward. Fear not. I've built the deck for you if you want to play Yargle.
Oh, no.
So here's the 4-card combo that you can play to kill your opponents with Yargle. Starts off, you need Yargle in play.
Okay.
Get it in play however you want. It's up to you. Then we need to cast a pump spell. Doesn't really matter. Can be any pump spell. Green pump spell, ideally. Maybe
For how
Mutagenic
much?
Growth. It just needs 1 more power. It's not a big deal. Attack with a Noble Hierarch in play. Then we Berserk our Yargle to give it 20 power. Then we Rite of Consumption them and we 20 them with it.
You know,
And we sack the Yargle.
they die from combat damage.
Well, maybe you can't attack them. They have a Mazavith. Look, this lets you do it
If
on the turn you cast the Yargle.
you don't even kill them with the Yargle, you kill them with the spell.
Correct. The Yargle was an essential component.
Okay, this card's super cool, and it's a meme card.
And not playable.
And not playable. Please. Please. I mean,
Sorry, Yargle.
Sorry,
we're sorry.
Yargle.
Cool. I like you, but...
All right,
that.
let's move to the only red card we have on the list. Another very flavorful card. It's Jaya Ballard. Ballard?
Ballard.
Jaya Ballard, right, named after the city. 5 mana Planeswalker for 2, red, red, red. Enters the battlefield with 5 loyalty, +1, add red, red, red. Spend this mana only to cast instant and sorceries. An additional +1, discard up to 3 cards, then draw that many cards. And the ultimate, -8, you get an emblem with you may cast instant and sorcery cards from your graveyard. If you cast a card this way, exile it. Jer.
I wanted this card to be good really badly. I think the flavor around this card is sweet, but all the abilities are just lacking something. You're paying 5 for a 5 mana Planeswalker. It's triple pipped, so it's hard to cast. The condition on the first ability to only casting instant and sorceries means that it just isn't going to get used very often. The only instants and sorceries you're casting really for that kind of mana are the wildfire effects.
Yeah.
And while it's kind of nice to be able to get additional mana to cast those, you're like mostly there anyways by the time you get 5. Like
Yeah.
you can probably cast a 6 mana sorcery. So it probably doesn't make that much of a difference. You're never going up cards with the other +1. You're always
Neutral.
neutral, and you're also discarding first, which is worse. So it's rummaging, not looting. So that's kind of disappointing as well. That it is the strongest ability. The ability to get 3 fresh cards a turn is a really big deal, and you could potentially use it with some graveyard synergies, and it does fuel her ultimate. But her ultimate comes 4 turns after you play her, and it's basically a Past in Flames emblem, and it's just too slow and doesn't even necessarily win you the game.
Yeah. So it's tough, but probably not going to see a lot of play in Highlander.
Like, it's a shame that it misses one of the really important things about a Planeswalker is it needs to be able to defend itself.
Yeah,
Like in a vacuum.
doesn't defend itself, and it doesn't even win you the game.
Yeah.
Like,
All right, let's move on.
We still love you, though.
Yeah. We're moving to green. That was the only red card. And first up, we have Grow from the Ashes. 3 mana sorcery. Search your library for basic land card, put it on the battlefield, then shelf your library. Or you can kick it for 2 generic, in which case, 2 basic lands. Notably, they enter the battlefield untapped. Alex.
See, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to do a whole thing about it.
I'm
but,
sorry.
You know, just hung me out to dry.
Sorry.
I overlooked that text on this card because there's a billion ramp cards that always read tapped.
Yeah.
So I went completely blind when I was looking at this. And it was actually literally today that I looked a second time. I was like, what do you mean untapped?
Yeah.
This is a good ramp spell.
Yeah. Cool. All right, next up we have Multani, Yavamaya's Avatar. 6 mana 0/0, pardon? Legendary Elemental Avatar. It has reach, trample, and it gets +1/+1 for each land you control and each land in your graveyard. Oh. 2 mana, 1 and a green. Return 2 lands you control to their owner's hand. You may return Multani from your graveyard to your hand. No, I'm just joking. Liam.
Yeah, I mean, this card's interesting. Probably too expensive to really be super relevant. Like, one of the cards you can maybe sort of compare this to is Maloku the Clouded Mirror, in the sense that it lets you bounce lands and play them again. Ultimately, I don't think Multani is often going to be big enough to warrant costing 6. If you could figure out some sweet way, I mean, like, this card's probably like a fine combo card, actually. If you wanted to, like, reanimate it and then throw it at your opponent or something, it would have a large amount of power and toughness, so, like, it's like another thing to Lord of Extinction them with.
Interesting.
But I don't think, or sorry, Mimeoplasm. You like Mimeoplasm this plus Murderous Red Cap?
Right, but nobody plays those cards anyway.
Yeah, but you could. Like, it's something to think about. Like,
That's so
because Lord of
interesting.
Extinction's pretty expensive, and this is probably going to be cheaper. So,
I
if
tried
that's a
to
combo
think-
you're interested in.
I tried to think of Multani as a combo card, and I kept trying to evaluate them in the context of a fast bond deck, and I was like, this doesn't infinite with fast bond. It doesn't, because there's also the clause where Multani has to be in your graveyard, so you can't even recur that second ability over and over and over.
well, you can activate it a bunch in response to itself.
But, like, it's not actually infinite, right?
But then
can,
you
like, return
can't
6
play the lands. Like, you can get a little bit of value out of it, but it's not like a Maloku. It's not like
It's
an
true.
Overall or Trade Routes.
I think it's a value card, which is... I actually think I might play it in the Bug Lands deck I was playing.
Interesting, really?
Playing recently. It's close.
I feel like-
It's really nice because it's insane if you're on a Life from Loam game.
Yeah.
Because you just, like, all you want to do is, like, get value from loaming. And if you loam this, not only are there going to be a bunch of land cards in your graveyard, which is really good with this card, but you also just, like, basically drew a card.
This is probably, yeah, like you say, probably pretty sweet with, mulched on deck.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting. All right, next up, we have Song of Freyalise. This is one of the sagas we're going to talk about today. 2 mana. Chapters 1 and 2 both read until your next turn. Creatures you control gain tap, add 1 mana of any color. And the 3rd chapter, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible until end of turn. Jer.
So I think this card is actually one we potentially underrated. The abilities are really, really strong and they fuel each other. The big downside is your creatures for the first, like, you're sort of like showing your opponent what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And creatures are pretty easy to interact with. So if they're able to interact with your creatures, they can get you before the 3rd tick of this goes off. But if the 3rd tick goes off, you're in a pretty good position.
When the 3rd tick goes off, you can crack in and then tap them for mana, can't you?
No, they won't have that
Until
ability
your
anymore.
next turn?
They don't get mana on that turn.
Turn 1,
No.
you get the first one. Turn 2, you get the second one. Turn 3 is the third one. You don't also get 1 and 2.
The turn you play this, they make mana. The next turn, they make mana. The 3rd turn, they get +1/+1 indestructible and can attack.
Yeah,
with
but it
Vigilance.
says, like, until your next turn.
Right. Turn 3
Not-
is your next turn. Chapter 3 will be at your
It's
turn.
until the beginning of that turn.
Not until the end of your next turn. Until your next turn.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, so just like on your opponent's turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right, next up we have Spore Swarm. 4 mana instant, create 3 1/1 Saprolines. Alex.
I compared this to Rith's Charm, which is 1 mana less and 2 colors more for the same effect. Kind
Well,
of.
Rith's Charm has more abilities.
Well, it has more abilities,
Yeah.
but I think this is
blows up a
comparable in that you can. I mean, it's instant speed, which is a big deal.
Yep.
It makes 3 bodies, which is also a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's real splashy. So I mean, I think some sort of token-based. Maybe Aristocrats deck wants to play this.
Cool.
I think there's a Naya tokens deck that's got a lot better by virtue of all the
Yeah.
Saproling token cards getting printed in this set.
Totally.
And
think
that's
so.
part of why I wanted to talk about this card and Saproling Migration both. I think both fit into that kind of strategy.
Yep.
All right, and our last green card today is the Mending of Dominaria. 5 mana saga for 3 green. Chapters 1 and 2 read, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Then you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And the 3rd chapter, return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, then shuffle your graveyard into your library. Liam.
Yeah, so we have a 4 mana creature that does the same thing as the last chapter of this, right? I don't remember the name of it.
Not
but
quite
it's
the same. World Shaper.
World
Yeah.
Shaper. It's like a similar kind of idea. The big issue with this card is that it costs 5. And the kinds of things it's doing are kind of like setups for a payoff. I guess it is its own payoff later, but it's not actually doing anything until what, like turn 7 if you cast it on curve, if you cast it earlier.
It's potentially drawing you a card, but
Sure, but I don't know.
yeah, I agree. It's not exciting.
I just think it's like a little too expensive, and the effect isn't splashy enough. Like that 3rd chapter is really powerful, but
Yeah.
I think I would rather just play Splendid Reclamation instead, which does the same thing for 4 mana.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know, it's like maybe there's some deck that is really in on that plan, some kind of like traumatized scape shift deck that just needs this effect really badly.
All right, let's move on to gold cards. Our first gold card
okay.
is Garna the Blood Flame. 5 mana 3/3 legendary human warrior for 3 and black and red. It has flash. When Garna enters the battlefield, return to your hand all creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from anywhere this turn, and other creatures you control have haste. Jer.
This card has a lot of really good text. I wish it cost 1 less, but there's going to be a use for this card. I can't think of it right now, but yeah, like Flash is a really good ability. It ties in with the second ability. Like if your opponent wraths you, you can play this and draw all the creatures that just got wrathed away.
Black-red.
Yeah, it is a little weird feeling, and then it gives your creatures that you play that you drew with her haste when they come back down. So like, yeah.
It's very interesting. It's very, very, very interesting.
It's also really weirdly worded because it says entered your graveyard from anywhere,
Yeah.
which means that you can use it as like a combo card with Hermit Druid. Like if you deck yourself with Hermit Druid and then reanimate this, you get every creature in your deck back. And so Jared and I were discussing whether this is better than Angel of Glorious Rise, because you can do something like play the Spirit Guides in your deck or something. It's like, it's weird. It makes your kill condition different, and it's not obvious as to whether it's better or not, but it's possible it is.
It's a mystery.
You need another mana, yeah. And then you can cycle your Street Wraith after casting your
Very nice cards.
Maniac.
All right, next up we have Grand Warlord Rada. 4 mana, 3/4 elf warrior for 2 red, green, haste. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control attack, add that much mana in any combination of red and green. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. Alex.
I don't know that we've ever been terribly impressed by. There's a Gruul sort of ability that's being printed on a lot of cards, which is making mana when you attack.
Yeah,
and I don't think I've ever seen a single card of that type see play in our format.
Yeah.
It's just kind of awkward because like you need to put your creatures. Like you need to threaten your own creatures to make mana and potentially end up losing them to, bad blocks and so forth.
It also like sort of tricks you into continuing to put all your things on the board, and that's often not good.
Yeah, set yourself up to get mass blown out by a wrath or something like that.
It's like I think for this mana cost, I would rather play.
There's so many red
Xenagos.
haste creatures. Yeah.
Huntmaster, Hellrider.
Yeah, 4 mana in these Gruul colors, especially for an aggressive deck, is very competitive. I just don't know if Grand Warlord makes the cut. All right, let's move on. We have Teferi the Timebender. This is a
6 mana.
6 mana Planeswalker. Just waiting for it to come out. 6 mana Planeswalker for 4 and a white and a blue. Enters play with 5 loyalty. +2, untap up to 1 target artifact or creature. -3, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. -9, Time Walk. Liam.
Yeah, so this is the intro deck to Fairy, and typically the intro deck Planeswalkers are pretty underwhelming.
Well, by design.
Yeah, and they're not supposed to be insanely powerful. This one's really interesting, and it's the -3 that makes it interesting. Gaining 2 life and drawing 2 cards for a -3 on a Planeswalker is like very powerful. Like playing this as 6 mana Divination, gain 2 life, and like maybe getting to untap with it is pretty enticing. The fact that it also combos with Time Vault, like maybe that matters. It's sort of like it's like another card that you could play in like a blue-white Time Vault deck as a way to win the game. It pseudo protects itself if you have a creature in play because you can kind of like crack in and then untap give it sort of pseudo vigilance. Like
you untap your Grim Monoliths and your Mana Crypts and stuff.
Yeah, so it's like it's interesting. It's close. I don't think it's a slam dunk, but it's definitely the first intro deck Planeswalker that has been like worth talking about in the context of our format, and it's close. Like. The +2 and the -3 are both pretty reasonable, and the -9 is obviously powerful. So,
all right, let's talk about our last gold card today, and that's Tiana, the Ship's Caretaker. This is a 5 mana 3/3 legendary angel, except it's in red, so our Bant Angel deck can't quite splash for Tiana.
we'll just be 4 color.
Flying and first strike. Oh, get the flavor. She's an angel, so she can like fly under the ship to repair it.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so flying first strike, legendary angel artificer 3/3. Whenever an aura or equipment you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may return that card to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. Jer.
This ability is super sweet. I like all the text on her, except the mana cost. It's just likely too much for that ability in this format. You just like, for your like engine type cards, you can't have them costing that much unless you're ramping super hard, and auras and equipment typically don't ramp you super hard.
No, the Boros equipment deck. I've experimented with exactly 1 5-drop. 1 5-drop in that, and I forgot the name. It's
Jor-Kadeen.
Jor-Kadeen. Jor-Kadeen is the only 5-drop I've ever played within that Boros deck because that card is insane. And in comparison, I'm waiting for Graham to bring it up. 5 mana, 5/4 with first strike. Metalcraft. Creatures you control get +3/+0 as long as you control 3 or more artifacts. Like, that's the card that comes in, it's just like, you're dead.
Beep, beep.
Yeah. I don't know, this card's cool.
This card is cool, and it's going to be great in EDH.
Yeah, it's going to be bonkers.
Great in EDH. People will love this card. It'll be super sweet, and I think getting your auras back is maybe the best part of that ability, because you know, your equipment gets blown up from time to time, but you're more likely to be losing auras, so.
All right. Let's move on to our artifacts.
Actually, just had a quick question before we move on from gold, only because it's not only not in the set, but also not in the intro packs. If
Minotaur.
Fire Song and Sunspeaker was at all on the radar. I didn't think so.
Yeah,
but
bring
I'll
it up. Let's talk about it really quick. So Fire Song and Sunspeaker, 6 mana 4/6 legendary Minotaur cleric, legendary cleric. For 4 red and white.
This deck has support.
Red instant and sorcery spells you control have lifelink. Whenever, it's hard to read. Whenever a white instant or sorcery spell causes you to gain life, Fire Song deals 3 damage to target creature or player. I believe at this point we're at Alex.
This is so like that Boros hybrid lord from Lorwyn block, the name of which escapes me at the moment.
Like the one red, white, pip, red, white, pip, red, white, whatever?
Something.
Noblesse of War?
No, there's something
Balefire Liege.
Balefire Liege, that's the one. It's kind of similar, because that one was 2 and then 3 Boros hybrid.
Yeah, that one's like
and it had a
whenever
very
you...
similar ability.
Yeah,
there you go.
So Balefire Liege was 5 mana, 2/4. Other red creatures get +1/+1. Other white creatures get +1/+1. You control, pardon me. And whenever you cast a red spell, deal 3 damage to target player. Whenever you cast a white spell, you gain 3 life.
Whenever you cast Lightning Helix, ruin everybody.
Do both.
And these cards are the same in that sense. They both make Lightning Helix very good.
Now it's interesting on this one because this one can target a creature or a player. So Lightning Helix in this case would gain you 6 life, and then you'd have the triggered ability where you could do another 3 damage.
Yeah, deal 6 and you gain 6.
Yeah,
And you can spread it out.
yeah, 2 different targets. So it's neat. Let's open this up to the room. What deck would you play this in?
So the big issue is the mana cost. It's 6.
6 mana, yeah.
And the secondary issue is... Yes? Did you have a question? Or you had a comment? Oh, okay, sorry.
I'm getting in queue.
The secondary issue is that I think a lot of the times, like, our format's power level is high enough that we don't need to play... I see you're putting a quarter on the machine. That's good back. You don't need to play cards to make your cards better. Like, oftentimes you just get to play good cards anyway. And so that's where I see this struggling. We have seen from Soulfire Grandmaster, though, that giving your instants and sorceries lifelink is good. So, who knows?
Alex.
Big Boros.
Yeah.
Jer?
That's what I was gonna say. Potentially, like, playing this, not dying, and then casting, like, starting to cast red wraths.
You gain so much life off of Wildfire.
I was gonna say, you cast Wildfire and you just, like,
Or-
gain 20.
Or you could cast, like...
And it survives all the wildfires, which is a big deal.
Oh, right, because... Oh, yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
pretty spicy. Also, like, when you Bonfire the Damned, your opponent, that's revolting.
Yeah.
Why would you do that to another human?
So it's neat. It could see play. It'd be a build around. It's not an auto include. It'd be interesting actually if this was like a 3 mana 2/3.
Yeah, then I think it'd be
I think
really
it'd
cool.
be crazy, and I think
Ooh.
that would get in the Jeskai decks like pretty quickly, bruh.
They had a 3 mana
no.
2/3. It was the Hurloon Minotaur, and this is 2 Minotaurs stapled together. That's why it's a 6 mana 4/6.
I was so close to being super insano stoked about this
Yeah.
because I was like, you can play Harm's Way, but it doesn't work because it doesn't gain you life because it's not red.
All right,
Anyway.
let's move on to artifacts. The last of our cards for today, because we talked about all the lands we want to talk about. Spoilers. Black Blade Reforge. This is a 2 mana legendary equipment. We got a lot of questions about this card as well. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control. If you equip a legend, it only costs 3. But if you equip a non-legend, it costs 7. And I guess technically you could pay 7. Just because. Liam!
Yeah, this card's text box is very powerful. It just costs a lot to equip. It's cheap to cast. I think it's plausible that Mono White just now has a density of legends that this card is playable. The question is whether that deck is like a lot of legends.
It is.
But I don't think this card would see widespread play. Largely because it's also just like not actually that much better than like sort of whatever your choice might be.
Yeah.
So,
They're not even playing all of the sort of whatever. Like, they're often not playing Sword of War and Peace.
yeah, so it's like kind of awkward because this card just kills them and doesn't actually do anything else.
I don't think it necessarily changes the clock fast enough for the fact that it doesn't grant evasion or other things. Like the classic swords that we play in the format, sort of Fire and Ice, sort of Feast and Famine, sort of Light and Shadow, offer protection, evasion, and some type of additional ability, either card advantage or recursion or something like that. I don't think that the possible extra 2 or 3 damage you'll get from this sword outweighs the long-term benefit and the flexibility that those swords provide.
Plus,
You know-
if you're an aggressive deck, you're not going to have that many lands.
That's what I'm
so
saying.
that's
Yeah,
why
You might
I
have
was gonna
4
say-
lands, and that'd be 1 extra point of damage.
Yep.
You know what's dreadful about this is that you're never, ever, ever equipping this to Mutavault to kill them after Wrath. It won't happen.
Yeah.
We could put Channel in our deck.
That's stupid.
I resemble that remark.
All right.
I'm sorry. I spoke out of anger. Cool art, though. It's very cool looking.
All right. On that note, Howling Golem. 3 mana 2/3 Golem. Whenever it attacks or blocks, each player draws a card. Jer.
I could potentially see this getting played in, like, a really low to the ground, like, BattleBots
I kind of want to try it.
affinity list, because, like, that deck plays all the Time Twisters anyways, and this is, like, it might Time Twister eventually, maybe.
Yeah.
But
If you're
it-
really
it's-
aggressive.
Yeah, it's actually worse because Time Twister, like, recycles their hand. It's like, if they have 7 cards in hand and you have none, you just went +7. Whereas this card's just, like, always +1/+1.
Yeah.
It's gas every turn.
It's interesting.
It's potential.
It's also another card for the Owling Mine deck.
Yeah.
The what?
Yeah, the bounce all your lands, kill you with Rune Flare Trap.
With
Owling.
what flare? What?
Yeah, Rune Flare Trap. It's 5 mana or 1 red mana if they've drawn 3 or more cards this turn. Dome your opponent for however many cards they have in hand. And then there's a bunch of others. Well, there's not a bunch, but there are other effects that also deal damage to your opponent equal to the number of cards they have in hand.
Sudden
You can,
impact.
yeah, and you can also
Tybalt, the Fiend Blooded.
yeah, but like you can also like Blood Oath people and like try and guess what type of card they have the most of in their hand. Blood Oath is the really hot one actually. You should pull that one up.
You all right? You all right, Alex? You just broke Alex.
It's 3 and a red for an instant that says, yeah, choose a card type. Target player reveals their hand, then takes 3 for every card of that type. So this was the hot tech against Factor Fiction. You'd 5-0 split Factor Fiction, then 15 your opponent.
First of all, my brain is melting. Second of all, Mike Plug, who drew this card, did the concept art for The Thing.
Cool.
And also I think the Dark Crystal.
Huh.
Sick.
So that's weird. I think I need a nap now.
Yeah, I have a Blood Oath. I've been waiting for enough of these kinds of effects to get printed because you need your opponent to have a bunch of cards in hand. You need to make it hard to get them out of your hand.
Yeah.
And in Highlander, a lot of people have a lot of cheap spells,
Yeah.
so it can be
Tax
challenging.
effects or something like
but
that.
yeah, like this is like the deck where maybe you like evacuation your opponent, then name creature with this card. Like
Yeah,
I've been thinking, the wheels have been turning.
Bonk.
All right, let's move on. Next up, we have Mox Amber. Costs 0, has the word Mox. Pretty spicy so far. Legendary artifact, okay. Add 1 mana of any color among legendary creatures and planeswalkers you control. Alex.
It's almost like a non-bow with itself. Because, like, the strength of Mox's is it's free mana early on. And the caveat for this tapping for anything at all is you having a permanent in play that could cost between 2 and 5 mana. I actually thought about this in the context of Modern. I was like, maybe there's a deck that just plays 4 Zurgo, 4 Isamaru, 4 of this.
Kytheon.
Yeah, 4 Kytheon, and just all it wants to do is turn 1 4 power every game. 4 Chrome Mox.
And then you like
You can't play Chrome Mox in that format.
you play like
What?
It's banned.
Is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, Chrome Mox not legal.
then you play like Gideon and Brimaz.
You can play Simeon Spirit Guide if you want.
Yeah.
Spirit Guide out some Zurgos.
So, you going to play it in Highlander?
Nope.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Like, the chances of you getting mana off this
Well,
are... ugh.
you can build a deck that will reliably let you make mana, just not early enough for it to matter.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean,
At that
like,
point,
it's
yeah.
kind of like a free... Like, it's...
I wish it said legendary permanent.
Yeah.
I think it might be too good then, because it would make mana just on its own to make it colorless.
Yeah, because it enters play.
No, because it
you
adds
get
1
color.
mana of any color.
Color.
Oh, okay.
So if it
Yeah.
said type, then
Yeah.
it would work off itself. But
That's all good.
Well, I mean, if they printed a 0-cost artifact that even tapped for colorless...
actually, they'd need to change the wording to
Yeah.
make type work before I get
Yeah.
ranched in the comments.
Like, would that be busted? Would a colorless
think so.
Mox be busted?
I don't think so.
All right, and
Well,
finally... oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
colorless
it'd
Mox would be
it'd
busted.
be very, very, very good.
if it worked by
Even
itself.
at Legendary. Let us move on to our last card of our part 2 of our set review today, and that is the Thran Temporal Gateway. 4 mana legendary artifact, 4 and tap. You may put a historic permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. Liam, I knew you were excited to talk about this, and I set it up miraculously to give you our last card. And go.
So this card's really cool in like sort of the big cheat strategies.
Yeah.
What you'll notice is that a lot of the big fatties that you want to cheat into play are historic. So a lot of them are legendary. A lot of them are artifacts. So I don't know exactly what I want to do with this card yet. But I know it puts Gristlebrand into play, and then I'm a big fan of doing that.
Go on.
It also does things like put Door to Nothingness into play on their end step, and then they never see it coming when they get Door to Nothingness the next turn.
Would you...
Does this have an advantage over Quicksilver Amulet?
Yeah, probably, but like that card's not super played currently either. But yeah, but this is definitely better. So it's like there's a
Is it
reasonable-
better?
Yeah, I think so.
Would you play this in Paradox Academy?
Do you think
To
getting
protect your Academy from counterspells? To protect your Paradox engine from counterspells? Sorry.
I think it's a little too narrow for doing specifically that.
You're saving 1 mana.
You can cheat your Academy into play.
What?
Because it's the legendary permanent.
Surge.
You can play land.
Search
true.
no.
No, I mean that's like not that thin. That's not unreasonable. And like so, one thing that this card lets you do, if you have a lot of mana, like you often do in the Paradox Engine deck, is that you can sort of sneak through the win condition that you have potentially, which might be good against counterspell decks. I think this card is narrow. I don't think this card is amazing by any means, but it's got a really powerful splashy effect, and so those kinds of cards have a tendency to wiggle their way into decks sometimes.
What
and I think
is
this card is interesting.
the biggest, scariest artifact, like
Blightsteel
non-creature artifact?
Colossus.
What's
Blightsteel
so
Colossus, probably. You could also put Draco into play if you felt like
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Non-creature.
Is there a non-creature that you want to be playing?
Oh, Door of
Par-
Nothingness.
Paradox Engine.
Paradox Engine.
Yeah, like saving 2 on Staff of Nin isn't that crazy.
It's fine, but yeah, not amazing by any means.
Spine of Ishsa.
It puts, what is that one from the Kaladesh block that gets permanents out of your deck?
Planar Bridge.
Yeah, it gets Planar Bridge or Planar Portal can put those into play on a slightly cheaper basis. I don't know.
That's fine.
It's a weird card.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about it.
All right, team. Well, that is our set review. And with this episode, we conclude our Highlander input into Dominaria, which I think overall I'm really excited about the set. I think it adds a bunch of pretty sweet cards, and I'm going to play a lot of them. I mean, yeah, thoughts on that?
6 out of 10.
6 out of 10?
Good set, yeah.
Yeah, as we talked about before, I don't think there's going to be like a ton of Highlander staples from this set, but there's like a bunch of sweet cards that go into more
Very
niche decks,
specific
which is
decks,
actually
yeah.
somewhat more exciting. Like,
Yeah.
Totally.
but,
Yeah,
You
there's
know-
a bunch of tier 3, tier 4 decks that just got a little bit better, which is great.
Well,
Yeah,
Ouch,
I
you're
love
basically
seeing
describing all I build.
No, I think well, all right.
You're not wrong. Yeah.
I'm hardly one to be
Is
talking
there any set that you would say is 10 out of 10?
for Highlander. I would have to think about it. There's probably one, but
There's a couple.
Alpha's pretty good.
I mean, Innistrad was really hot.
Innistrad was hot.
eh.
I mean, Delver, Liliana, Snapcaster.
Delver's not very good in Highlander.
Ravnica maybe
Oh,
Zendikar.
OG Rav. Yeah. All right, whatever.
Sets like that are the ones that-
Zendikar.
Yeah.
Zendikar's pretty good.
Yeah, okay.
It's pretty stupid.
All right, let
Woodlake.
us move on to our closing segment, Powerful Magic. And up today is me. So I want to paint a board state with my words to talk about some
Okay, you've
stuff
got
like
Painter
that.
Servant in play.
I don't actually. So I was playing Enchantress, which is something we talked about a little bit today, and I was playing some type of very dirtily prison-style Enchantress deck where I had a board state where I had a Moat in play. And in addition to Moat, I also had the Abyss in play.
Uh-oh.
So I had that nice soft lock. Moat says creatures without flying can't attack, so I'm sitting behind that. And in addition to that, I had the Abyss, which is a 4-mana enchantment from Legends, which says at the beginning of each player's upkeep, destroy target non-artifact creature that player controls. It can't be regenerated. And so we had this board stall back and forth. I've got a pretty good creature-based lock. They were on a creature-based strategy. But the issue you often find yourself in with Enchantress is, okay, now what?
How do I win?
Well, step one is always don't lose, and then you get there and you're like, ha! And then you're like, oh wait, no, we're only halfway there. Now I actually have
There's
to.
10 minutes left in the round, and I have to figure out how to win a
Yeah,
game.
now I
eh?
only have to close the game. And luckily for me, I had assembled both pieces of Dark Depth and Thespian Stage.
Sorry.
Which will give me Merit Lodge, my good friend, who can fly over the moat.
Perfect.
Now, for whatever reason, my opponent and I are both aware of the fact that I have this in play. And they're super confident. They're like super, super confident. And I'm just like, I can't play anything here because they obviously have the answer because they're not sweating or they don't look like I'm going to die or anything like that. And so I'm like keeping it going back and forth. And they're just like, oh man, Serge can't kill me. And then finally, they've emptied their hand. They have no cards left. And I'm just like, what do they see that I don't see? So at their end step, I'm like, I guess I'm going for it. I activate Thespian Stage, I copy Dark Depths, I sacrifice all of it, I get Merit Lodge. Merit Lodge comes into play. And I like look at them and they're like still feeling pretty smug. And they pass to me and they're like, so the Abyss kills your Merit Lodge, right?
No,
And I'm like,
doesn't.
oh no!
Oh, honey.
I'm sorry, Merit Lodge says indestructible.
Yeah, but it's the Abyss that's the real culprit here. Everyone
Yeah.
thinks it says
But-
sacrifice,
Yeah,
but it's
so
just not.
very notably,
Mario
yeah.
Lodge also
It also targets, which is weird.
it's also black.
Yeah, and there's just so many things there where I had fallen for my opponent's endgame where they thought that I was going to goozle myself off my own card, and I double goozled myself by letting them goozle me when Merit Lodge has a lot of words that are very relevant there.
Yeah,
The
and
classic blunder.
really
of-
quickly for everyone at home, the reason it doesn't work is because the Abyss says, yeah, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, destroy target non-artifact
Oh, it's not. Oh, okay. No, it does have black
creature,
creatures.
yeah, that player controls. of his or her choice, it can't be regenerated. So it's not a sacrifice, it's a destroy.
Yeah.
Which means the indestructibleness of Merit Lodge means
is
you just get to target it and then it
Akin
doesn't
to
die.
its fellow Legends card, the Tabernacle of Pendulum.
Ah, yes. Yeah. Lives through Tabernacle as well.
Really?
Wait, what?
Yeah, because
Tabernacle
doesn't
also
say
not
It
sacrifice.
doesn't say
Oh,
sacrifice.
it doesn't
It
actually
says
give them a
destroy.
cumulative upkeep? That's so weird.
Yeah, so if you have indestructible creatures and you're playing Tabernacle, you don't have to pay for Tabernacle.
That's good, I didn't know that. I will keep that in
right.
mind.
And I've done that before as well. They're like, "Hey, you didn't pay Tabernacle on your Merit Lodge," and I was like,
I know.
don't have to."
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it got destroyed. Can't you see?
Yeah.
Well,
The Tabernacle doesn't care.
the tabernacle don't give a darn.
So yeah, that's my powerful magic story.
That's powerful.
Yeah, I liked it, but especially the part where I fell for my opponent. Like this, sometimes you can just sit there and very confidently be like, "I got this."
Look not dead.
And even though they're clearly dead on board, you can fool even.
It's worked a shocking amount of times.
Yeah, you can fool people who really should know better, but apparently don't. Like, I don't know, it could have been like, they have swords in hand.
I don't know. It's like if you really have nothing, sometimes you can mind game your opponent into making a horrible misplay.
And sometimes all you need is a turn.
Yeah, make them have it. All right, team, well, that's our episode for today. Thank you very much for all the feedback. We really appreciate it. As always, a reminder that this podcast is brought to you by you with your support of the Patreon at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. Thank you so much for all the feedback. We appreciate it, and looking forward to next episode. Thanks.
Bye.